So we are now live.
Okay,
Yeah.
shall we open now?
Yes, no.
Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Magandang umaga, magandang hapon, magandang gabi, wherever you are joining us for today. Welcome to the Heritage Forum series organized by Buhay Quiapo. I am Fernando, not Zialcita. I help run the Museo ng mga Katipunero at the Bahay Nakpil Bautista in Quiapo. At the same time, I am a professor at the Department of Sociology and Anthropology of the Ateneo de Manila. I will be your moderator for today's panel entitled Living Heritage. This webinar will also be live streamed at facebook.com/Ateneo Socio-Antro. First, I would like to introduce to you our chair, the Department of Sociology and Anthropology, who is also one of the organizers of Buhay Quiapo. He is Dr. Jose Joel Canuday, an expert in anthropology. He got his Ph.D. at the University of Oxford in the UK. So Mr. Joel Canuday, Dr. Joel Canuday, we would like to welcome you.
Thank you, Dr. Zialcita. Good afternoon, everyone, as well as good evening to those who are viewing from other parts of the world. And then probably good afternoon as well if there are any in that time zones. As Dr. Zialcita had said, I'm going to introduce the project that we are on, the project that we call Buhay Quiapo. Let me just share my screen. I hope my screen can be seen. Is it?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So let me carry on. So this is a project that's being currently initiated by two collaborating institutions: the Department of Sociology and Anthropology at the Ateneo de Manila, and Bakás, Pilipinas, the Philippine Historic Preservation Society, an international organization that had been working across the Philippines, preserving heritage sites from areas like the churches in Bohol and heritage areas in several other parts of the Philippines. Department of Sociology and Anthropology is a 60-plus-year-old department at Ateneo de Manila. Okay, I'm showing you the area where we will be conducting the study. The area or the photograph is focusing on the specific places that we are seeing, the study team are seeing as the historic core of Quiapo, where several materials, artifacts, and structures yield so much value on the question of not only about the local heritage of Quiapo, but also of the national heritage. For one, the area has been the site of pilgrimage. There are two churches that are nestled there. In fact, there are many churches that are nestled in Quiapo. But we're showing you two of the most popular and historic that has already gone to popular consciousness, even in popular culture. What you can see on the top is the Quiapo Church along Quezon Boulevard, and what you see below is the San Sebastian Church. I think that's the first and historic church in its own right, being the church that's been constructed mainly in steel in a period when the architecture about steel church had been the mode of the day or the year. Of course, Quiapo is a cosmopolitan place. We refer as a cosmopolitan place because this is a place where you can see the meeting of faiths, the meeting of cultures, the meeting of traditions. It's a site where one of the grandest mosque that was built in the 1970s, has been located. And then, of course, it has been an annual pilgrimage site for those who had been following the Nazarene. And apart from pilgrimage, apart from the churches, Quiapo has been witness to the changing of the times in the Philippines. The photographs that you're seeing are only some of the old structures, heritage structures that had been erected in the area from the Spanish period to the Americans, and had continued to stand up to today, notwithstanding developments and other forms of changes in the landscape, and also in the structures and infrastructures of the community. Of course, Quiapo has been witness to historical events in the country, not only as an area, not only as a place, but also as the roots and the places where the prominent figures in his history had lived. So there's a few of those were part of the Aguinaldo cabinets, and the revolution of 1898 had resided in Quiapo. One of them is Gregorio de Jesus, the grandmother of well, great grandmother, grandmother of Dr. Zialcita. Um, Today, Quiapo remained to be a dynamic site. It remained to be the center of production and reproduction of culture, an area that we would refer to in sociology, anthropology, as the habitus of social life. The different activities, different initiatives, different engagements can be seen in Quiapo. These initiatives, as we would know, are living cultures or intangible cultures that continue to live to this day. The production of amulets, the selling of amulets, and other forms of beliefs and material cultures, as well as living traditions that carried on in Quiapo across the decades, across the centuries, in fact. Um, and Quiapo is also one of the centers of economic activities and commercial initiatives and activities, not only in Manila but also in the country. Yes, there were, as they say, glory days in Quiapo, but if you come to the area now, you would still see the the mark of the glory, the glorious spirit of Quiapo. But it continues to be a habitus and a place where commerce and economic exchange, trading are being done to this day. Now, why are we interested in that, in studying Quiapo? Why are we interested in working in this area? And what do we want to achieve? Well, primarily our interest is to one is to see and understand the current state of the heritage in Quiapo. I noted several historical as well as meaningful sites, but there are actually less understanding of the state of these sites, the state of the material culture in the area. We do have some ideas, but we don't have a solid enough good idea to work on about what's going on. And our aim in assessing the state of the heritage is to hopefully have an opportunity to conserve what needs to be conserved, but at the same time, alongside with conservation, is the vision to revitalize the area, uh, not only for the sake of Quiapo, but also probably as think of it as a site that we can all learn from on how to revitalize certain locality in the country. That revitalization, that assessment, we thought had to be co-produced, had to be co-created, had to be co-worked with the stakeholders in Quiapo, the community that make up the area. So we would aim for identification and then mobilization of the stakeholders of Quiapo, who can work with us in assessing the current state of the cultural heritage, as well as in crafting a possible community-oriented regeneration plan for the place, for the district in particular. And we would also wish to engage in and work that would eventually improve lives, that would eventually uplift people's condition in the process of revitalization, for the sake of the well-being of the community, as well as for us to learn something more and something meaningful in the area. Um, our our objective, our research aim also include a plan to think about the better way of formulating a strategy in doing regeneration work, but not only for Quiapo, but hopefully a template, a model that can be that can be done, that can be envisioned for the rest of the country. And the aim is that this strategy for community regeneration should have a cultural orientation, as well as informed by solid data, by solid research. We would also aim for the achievement of a sustainable development directive and the direction and approaches in working towards the regeneration of the area. What we are not aiming for is to see a regenerated place wherein we would also see displacement of people. But what we aim to see is a sustainable development program that could contribute to the overcoming of poverty and the reduction or the overcoming of inequality. Our methodology, where we have a number of methods that we had already started, we had already begun, and that we will be working on in the course of the implementation of the project. One particular cornerstone method would be the ethnographic fieldwork. This would require immersion in the area and participant observation. We would have a researcher and also a team of data gatherers who would work in Quiapo in various stages of community immersions. We would also initiate survey um, in some of the places to complement with the ethnographic data. We are envisioning material analysis of the artifacts that we might be gathering, and also the structures that we are seeing in the district. We think that in the coming months we will be holding workshop as a means of gathering data that would also complement with the survey and the ethnography. I already noted that uh, the research that we aim would have to be oriented towards the community and would have to be informed by the community. Henceforth, we envision the need to immerse in Quiapo. And finally, of course, Quiapo is a historic place. It has a long tradition. We think that there are a number of items that have been knowledge items that have already been generated about Quiapo in the archives. So that's also one of the areas that we thought we can gather from as information about Quiapo in completing this research. Um, that's it. So Buhay Quiapo is a project. It's a passion. It's also a dream for many of us at the Department of Sociology, Anthropology, and Bakás, Pilipinas. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kanuday. And now I would like to introduce our first speaker. Our first speaker is Ms. Caroline Pasion, who has been working for the New York City Landmarks Preservation Commission since 2006, where she reviews and issues permits for proposed work on designated buildings, sites, and structures. She is also the outreach and grant coordinator in the Historic Preservation Grant Program. Caroline is a lifelong New Yorker with Filipino roots and a passion for New York City history and architecture that is shared through her professional and volunteer work in all 5 boroughs of New York and beyond. She graduated from St. John's University with a Bachelor of Science in Finance and Columbia University's Graduate School of Architecture, Planning, and Preservation with a Master of Science in Historic Preservation. Her current volunteer work is the following. She's an officer Bakás, Pilipinas, which in fact is our partner here. She's a board of Trustee, Preservation League of New York State. She's a board member of the Community Advisory Board at New York Public Radio. Please welcome Miss Caroline Pasion.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. Good morning and good afternoon to all. So when you hear the word heritage, what comes to mind? What do you think of? For me, heritage is cultural heritage. It's part of my identity, part of our environment. It's what shapes us as how we are as people. For me, heritage is where I grew up, where my family is from, traditions and events that we celebrate every year. And for some of us, it could be that special recipe that's passed down from generation to generation. Could be traditional dancing or even partaking in a procession or a pilgrimage every year. And through oral tradition and stories told about our ancestors, that's part of our identity. It's who we are, it's what we value, what we feel is important to us, and what gives meaning. And when you think about these stories and events and celebrations, these memories come back. When you see those events happen in those spaces where you celebrated, in the places where you grew up, where you learned, where you went to a concert, and all this, I think, ties into our tangible heritage, where we live and work, where your parents and grandparents grew up, and where you worship. So why is it important to preserve our tangible and intangible heritage? These are physical structures that help us understand the past. It connects us to our past and our history, but then why should we care? So in New York City, there was a station, Pennsylvania Station. It's in Manhattan, in New York City. It's a Beaux-Arts style station designed by McKim, Mead and White, 1904 to 1910. As you can see, the amazing space that this railroad station was. And in 1963, Penn Station
Caroline,
was
I'm
proposed.
sorry. Your slides are not showing. Then it's not moving.
Oh, it's not moving. Okay, I'm sorry, everyone. Let's try again. Thank you for letting me know.
Okay, now.
Does this work?
Now we see it.
Thank you, Roz. And that is Roz, our president from Bakás, Pilipinas. Thank you, Roz. So in 1963, Penn Station got demolished, and this became the pivotal moment when architects and engineers and citizens of New York City and the greater public came together to advocate for buildings and structures to be saved. So this really became a grassroots effort and really brought public awareness to some of the historic buildings in the city. And this is just one of those more prominent buildings that really got national and international attention. And as a result of the demolition of this, it galvanized this awareness. And as you see here, this construction of the new building, which is the current Penn Station, and you'll see in the background what's Madison Square Garden. And as a result, the passing of the New York City Landmarks Law happened in 1965 by the mayor at the time, Robert Wagner. And this law created the New York City Landmarks Preservation Commission today. So it is the largest municipal agency in the US, and it's responsible for surveying and finding historically significant sites that are culturally significant as well as architecturally. There are commissioners and staff that review these areas of the city in all 5 boroughs, and that would be Manhattan, Brooklyn, the Bronx, Queens, and Staten Island. And this is what helps keep our tangible and built heritage alive here in New York. According to this law, our purpose is to safeguard the buildings and places that represent New York City, our culture, the social, economic, political, and architectural history. And what has happened since then? It really has fostered civic pride. It's protected and enhanced the city's attractions to tourists. It's also strengthened the economy here in New York City. And it really promotes the use of historic districts and landmarks for the education and welfare of the people of the city and beyond, and for visitors. And what this also means is that these buildings, sites, and structures are designated under this law and they are protected. So if one proposes any work, the staff will review those proposals and determine if changes or alterations will not remove any significant historic features or architectural features, and we will issue permits to ensure that they're appropriate. But there are times when you don't see the history or what's happened at a particular place in time. And sometimes history is buried, physically covering layers of history and stories of people and civilizations before us. And in 1991, archaeologists uncovered this African burial site. It was a cemetery, and it unveiled evidence of over 8,000 Africans and Americans of African descent. And as a result, this cemetery site is protected. It is the US's earliest and largest known African American cemetery, and has become a part of our fabric that you wouldn't have seen if had not excavation been done. And we start, below the ground with excavation, and then we uncover artifacts. And part of preservation is that, right? We're trying to learn our past, the history, who's been here before us. And this is where conservation comes in, right? Conservation is one of the many sectors of historic preservation, of heritage preservation. We look at building materials, wood, bricks, terracotta, glass, stained glass. In this field of historic and heritage preservation, we refer to the professional use and expertise of those in science, arts, crafts, technology, repairing, restoring missing elements in a building requires a team of many professionals: historic preservationists, archaeologists, conservators, architects, engineers, trade specialists, skilled craftspersons, and artisans. And here with our project, anthropologists, cultural anthropologists, which are very important in really learning about the present. So I bring this up to say that we start out with the fragments, and then we start to look at individual buildings and what type of significance did that entail and what warranted these designations. And I kind of highlight this because these are 2 buildings in our city that had a use at one point. We have a bank that now is the place for a pharmacy. And we have what was once a courthouse and now used as a public library. And beyond individual landmarks, we have historic districts of special architectural character with streetscapes of row houses. You see the rhythm of windows and cornices that really help define the streetscape. And in this historic district, this is evident and known for its manufacturing and commercial buildings. It's the predominant building type and architecturally significant for their cast iron facades. And so you'll see that in different areas of the city, we have recognized these areas for particular building types, for row houses, for warehouses, and they all help to understand the different architectural styles and building methodologies and engineering and construction, and really helps to educate the present of how these buildings were constructed. And the ensemble of these buildings and the sense of place that you get helps with streetscape. And within these historic districts, we have new infill. And part of approving new buildings in a historic district is really looking at the design and making sure that it's sensitive to the size, the scale, and the massing of the adjacent buildings. And I want to highlight an example of this warehouse. It is in the Dumbo Historic District. This was a warehouse that was built, which was actually a series of row houses, and they were built between 1868 and 1885. It stored goods such as sugar, molasses, and coffee. And then it sat abandoned until there was a proposal, and it required a lot of public and private partnership and funding. But it has become a great example of adaptive reuse. Today, it is an office, it's retail space, there's a park, there's public amenities, there's access to the roof for the public, shops and restaurants. And, you know, adaptive reuse is just a tool, one of the many tools of historic preservation, of heritage conservation, where it can really activate a community, a neighborhood, a city, a town, and bring people to that space where, and make it vibrant again. And it really regenerates a whole new way of living for those who live there, who work there, and brings people from all over the world to see how this structure has been reused and has a new life of its own. And so with New York, you know, you have the iconic skyline, the streetscape, structures that you're like, oh, you see it, and you can immediately identify with it being New York. But you go beyond, and you have other areas of the world where you see specific types of structures, and you know, well, that's where, that's Guatemala, that is Tikal. You know, here is a heritage site that is so special to the people there. It's what they considered Tikal is to Guatemala what the pyramids are, right, to Egypt. And visitors from all over the world will go here. Why? Because you don't see this anywhere else. This is the only place to see these pyramids. Pompeii, you take a look and you see, again, an excavation site is now an archaeological site, and another area where is unearthed remains from a volcano eruption. And you see these different sites, these structures, the Colosseum, you see easily identifiable and recognizable buildings, and you know that you're in Rome, or you know you're in Vatican City. And people come from afar just for a pilgrimage to go to like the Santiago de Compostela. These are significant sites that really give someone a sense of place and attract people from all over the world, because this is the only area where you can go to see these spaces. In Kandy, Sri Lanka, we have Temple of the Tooth. It's another site where pilgrims from around the world travel to. And again, these structures give you a sense of place. And it's not just the structures, these tangible sites, but it's the people that go there that pay homage here. And in the Philippines, in this area where this is Trix, she has since passed, but she was a member of Bakás Pilipinas, and she was a photographer, and she journeyed here. And she went to the Kling community and she took photos and documented the houses and structures where they lived. And we see these tangible sites as, oh, we must preserve it. This is so important. But in the end, she found out that it wasn't just about the structures. It was about family. It was about their traditions. It was about being with each other. And that was most important for them in their community. And here in Nizamuddin, we have another site where the revitalization of this part of Delhi was a project of Aga Khan's Trust for Culture. It's a public-private partnership with India's government and Public Works Department. And it's one of Delhi's oldest settlements. It started in the 14th century around this Dargah. It's the shrine of the great Sufi saint. And it showcases some of the most outstanding Islamic architectural heritage of India. And based on conservation, it was development to help people there and improve people's lives. And there's job training and financial help for vendors. And again, another public-private partnership, including the Indian government agencies. And this is a pilgrimage area. It's a world famous Sufi site, which, not just preserving these structures, but it really gave meaning to people's lives. And the area is very diverse. There are mixed use buildings, and the mixed uses form an important part of the character of the area. The streets double as marketplaces during certain times of year. And, this actually started out as conservation-based. It's conservation-based urban development with improved quality of life for the local communities and improved access to basic urban facilities like health clinics, job training, schools, public toilets. And this project really required an integrated development approach. There are significant architectural sites, such as this old step well, the water storage and irrigation tank. These were all restored. And the project seeks to improve the living standards of the residents. It established a career development center, a school. It sponsored food vendors, and again, really revitalized the community members living there. And it aims to attract visitors, right? So it really enhances the visitor's experience through the rehabilitation of critical monuments, these civic open spaces, and enhance the area's value and significance in terms of the history, places of spiritual importance, and recreation. And it's a very special place that would also see here in Quiapo. And what do you think of when you hear of Quiapo? What immediately comes to mind? We see these historic images, San Sebastian in the background. And part of that is these historic houses, these heritage houses, and the people that are associated with these houses. You know, we have a house that where eminent lawyer once lived. You know, he became the honorary consul of Monaco. And here you have the Maglalang house, and it was, you know, an Augustinian architect, Father Martin, constructed the house in 1912, and it's here today, a surviving vestige of the past. And we have these houses that also, when you go to Quiapo, you're like, you know that you're there, and gives that sense of place. And the Zamora houses, where the pharmacist Manuel Zamora invented that formula of tiki-tiki for fighting beriberi disease. This is something that the whole world should be grateful for. And this man lived right here in Quiapo. He was a resident. And this association with these houses is what further contributes to that special significance in the area and that identity. In 2017, there were community groups and residents that came together for a watch day. It's on the World Monuments Fund watch list. And it was activities for children, for people, for street performers. And it took people in the community. It took everyone from San Sebastian, from KKB. It was a great combination of people to bring this together. And there was an art exhibit and an art installation of mosaics at the windows. I mean, this is what brings community together, and to celebrate, you know, this house and the presence of all the people here. You know, we have the Padilla house, which, you know, became an art gallery for his work at that time. And it would be great to reactivate this space to highlight his work and his association with this house. And we come to Buhay Quiapo. You know, historic houses are one thing. You know, you see them, it's nice, you see them from the street, but what makes this even more special is that you get to go inside. You get to step through that portal and you go back in time, and you can just think about the people that live there, understand how they lived in that space, and those people that are associated with it, what they contributed, you know, to the area. One of the residents was an architect, right? It was Juan Nagpil, and he designed theme theater. These are people who have lived in the area, and we can still see vestiges of them here. And we have the theaters, right? Two theaters remain, right? We have the Times Theater, you know, built in 1939. It was designed by Luis Araneta, and the Times Theater. And this really tells you the story of how vibrant Quiapo was at that time, and the styles and the influences of that time. And another, you know, iconic structure, we have the Golden Mosque, the worship space. It was built in 1972 and reflects the Muslim community. And the members have lived in Quiapo since the 1950s. And we have the pagoda, designed by Jose Ocampo. It was built in 1936 to 41. And again, here are two buildings that further contribute to that sense of place within the area and on the streetscape. And when one sees these structures, an immediate connection is made. And when you see any of these buildings on a screen, not just here on your screen, but even on a screen for the Netflix anime series Trece, right? It's recognizable, identifiable, and everyone knows the exact location of this scene. I was reading about the show and learned about how the director and art director scouted all of Manila and they did a walking tour of Quiapo. And here it is for the world to see, the whole world. You're on the map. And again, this is just another kind of iconic skyline that you would see, not just in New York City, but easily identifiable here in Quiapo. And we see how the buildings and structures, boulevards and streets contribute to that sense of place. And of course, so what further contributes to the special architecture in Quiapo is San Sebastian Basilica. You know, as Dr. Canuday said, you know, this is like the only all-metal church in the Philippines, built in 1891. And these metal structural components were fabricated in the very same workshop in Belgium as the Eiffel Tower. And then these components were shipped and then assembled in situ. And here it is still today. And what's even more extraordinary is the interior of the space, which features trompe-l'oeil, or kind of painted walls that are made to look like stone. And we have Quiapo Church. This was reconstructed in reinforced concrete in 1934, again by Juan Nakpil, who also designed the theater. The native Quiapo member of this community, and this national landmark that draws a national attention for the Nazarene, and that can come every year. And so here we have the tangible sites and the intangible significance and heritage all in one place every year. It's where the tangible and the intangible are inextricably linked and connected. And you know, this procession ties both national landmark churches. It brings a boost to the commercial and local vendors, and it's broadcasted everywhere. Everyone knows the significance of this procession. And so we see what Quiapo is here, a center for trade, for commerce, and areas for buying your religious statues, healing, fortune telling, all part of Quiapo's intangible cultural heritage, with fortune tellers in Paso Miranda. And probably the most important component of a place, the food. And, you know, I recently attended, saw a presentation, and what's highlighted? The food. I mean, who's not going to want to go here and try all of this? I know I do. So when we think about heritage, we're thinking about ourselves, our family, our friends, and we see that Quiapo isn't just a significant locally, but it is significant nationally to the whole country. It looms large because of the Nazarene, the procession, and the connection that it makes between the churches, but with everyone in between. It's a very special place. And it is, as our dear moderator, Dr. Zialcita, captured in his book, the heart of Manila. It's where the intangible gives life and meaning to the tangible, and they coexist and reinforce each other. So help history come to the present by honoring, respecting, and preserving the tangible and intangible significance in Quiapo for present and future generations. And together we can continue to make heritage alive. Thank you.
Maraming salamat, Caroline. Our second speaker is Dr. Richard Daenos. He is a department head 2 local government at Angeles City in Pampanga. He was a tourism officer of Angeles City in 2014-2016. He then became the president of the City College of Angeles. He holds a doctorate in educational management and is a senior fellow of the Royal Institute of Educators in Singapore and a fellow in business education at the Philippine Academy of Professionals in Business Education. He has been the secretary of the National Committee on Monuments and Sites of the National Commission for Culture and the Arts, and continues to be an active member of ICOMOS Philippines, meaning International Committee on Monuments and Sites. Please welcome Dr. Richard Daenos. By the way, one reason I invited him is because there's a very interesting development right now taking place outside Metro Manila. Several cities, Vigan, Iloilo City, San Pablo City in Laguna, and above all, Angeles City, have realized the value of heritage in regenerating the core of their settlements. And I think we in Metro Manila have a lot to learn from what is happening in the provinces. So let us listen to Dr. Richard Daenos. Richard, I think you're on mute.
Sorry. Can you
Okay,
hear me now, sir?
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just share my screen. Thank you for the opportunity to share with you our efforts to help preserve our heritage. Okay. Sir, okay na yung slides?
Yeah.
Could
Why don't you full
see it?
screen it now? Okay na.
Okay, thank
Full
you.
screen it.
Okay, my name is Richard G. Daenos. I am from Angeles City, and I am so glad that I was able to hear Miss Caroline to discuss basically some sort of rudiments in terms of heritage, and I am here to share the best efforts that we were doing here in Angeles City. One of the fast-growing cities in the country. So when you get to browse the city or the topic Angeles City via Google or any social media, it will give you somehow a very negative, most likely introduction about the city, because uh, just as you see it, it is actually very beautiful. It is downgraded with the following. No, number one, Angeles City by popularity. No, it's known as a sin city. There are some. These are some remnants of the military bases and it's affected the community. No? So it's a sin city. You see there just like a lifestyle, um, maybe being embraced by Amsterdam and Bangkok. And it's well, of course, if you see such lifestyle, it's always connected with the certain social issues such as sex and trafficking. No, part of its result. No, and when there are major activities and events, you know that one of the things that they get also to sell outside the city or part of that city is again sex tourism. So with that, we felt that we need to do something else about the city because there's something more about the city other than it is a sin city. It's also known as the entertainment city capital of the country. The biggest casino is found in the city, and part of its development, you see that it also introduces welcomes um, bigger possibilities for a lot of developments and changes, because the city is also a gateway to Clark, no? Which is, they say, the next big thing. In fact, big events of the government are now
Excuse
being
me, Richard, your slides are not moving either.
really. So what do I have to do?
And can you please share also? I mean,
I am.
enlarge, full screen.
Oh,
You,
sorry.
you
What's
need
happening?
to you need to press a slideshow, something like slideshow.
I did. It's moving on my part.
Really?
It's not moving on our screen.
Yeah.
Let me stop share first.
Okay.
If you would allow me for a while. Let me
Please.
check. I'll try to move it to the next slide. Please tell me if it is moving.
There, it can be seen.
Yes.
Okay, maybe I'll just have to put it that way rather than
Yeah, that's
enlarge it
fine.
to
That's fine.
It's very nice. Thank
Would
you.
that be nice? Ano? Okay.
Yeah.
So
But
this is
why don't you
analyst.
full screen it?
He can't do
Yeah,
it.
the thing here is we're
Ah,
having a
I think you have
problem.
to be given. Do we have to give you co-host powers?
I'm not so sure.
It's
Um.
okay. It's okay, Richard. You can just do it this way.
Okay.
Just turn on your just make them
Oh,
more move. Okay.
okay. So this is our city. As I have told you that it's really very beautiful. After we did the best efforts to conserve and all those clearing and cleaning during the time that I was a tourism officer. But moving towards this direction was not that easy because of uh, how the city is branded and how it is known by the rest of the country and the rest of the world. Okay, so you know very well that if you're going to Google, as I have told you early on, the term Angeles City, it will give you such results. Number one, that it is a sin city, no? Product of, again, this is a byproduct of the long stay of the military bases here in the Philippines, which is coupled with trafficking. I got this from the web, and these are issues, social issues, that are so attached with the city, no? And then the city is also known as an entertainment city. In fact, I told you a while ago that the biggest uh, uh, entertainment place is found in the city itself. It's also a vibrant city, growing, dynamic, and in the current the current development, it is being eyed as the next big thing, no, in the country. In fact, most of the government activities and milestone activities, international and local, are being held now in Clark. It is also considered in the region as the center for education because it might be considered a very small city, and yet you will be seeing two centers of excellence and others in this community. As for the intangible heritage, it is known as the sisig capital. There's a long story and narrative about what makes it the sisig capital, especially the sizzling sisig. So that's what the city is also known for. And the other branding that it is actually known for is that it's a culinary destination. In fact, a lot of tourists all the way from Manila would just want to visit uh, the city just because they wanted to have that Kapampangan food or taste, no, to savor and probably to experience it. So and we did another move, which is actually to transcend, no, to brand Angeles City as an entertainment to another one, which is the Heritage City back in 2000, early 2000. So well, unlike Manila, no, people are very educated in terms of the formalities of heritage. What we did in Angeles City is actually a bold effort done by the entire community. While there are a lot of lectures and there are a lot of exchanges of narratives in terms of the best practices on heritage conservation, where conservators are schooled in big, if not known, universities abroad and in Europe, if I may say it. In our case, it's actually uh, going through our own uh, our own initiative, no, finding the best way where we can help actually conserve, because this we feel is part of who we are, part of our existence, and it's it's not something that is dictated, rather it's something that is part of our daily routine. So I'm only given a little of a time, but I'd like to share some sort of initiatives done by the community in terms of heritage conservation. So it began by the formation of the Heritage District Working Committee, and upon its formation, there were some sort of capability building in terms of how will we prepare for the development plan. And so we seek help, expertise from uh, Manila, and we started by having that cultural mapping. What is yet that is left to us that needs to be conserved, and so the training and all those that are related with the mapping activities were done. So, and we started by, of course, giving information and education, and of course, the publication of the said results through our um, uh, uh, local magazine. No? So, as a result, we were able to find out what else is left to us, specifically with that of the main heritage district, and of course the other side of Angeles City that needs to be preserved, which is still part of Clark, no? Again, I think one of the things that will make us remember about Angeles City and Clark in terms of history is the occupation of the Americans, no? And how they have used the military bases as part of their forces. So we began doing our materials that will help educate the community. We partnered with DepEd, with teachers, and so we gave little lectures so that this can also be included in their curriculum, um, uh, to be integrated as part of their activities. So we did not only explore on the built heritage, we also tried to look into the intangible heritage. No? So after the publication of a guidebook that would most likely be used as a reference, we also produced another guidebook for our intangible heritage. And there we highlighted actually our year-round activities where the street is oftenly used, no, as our performance space. So it is here where we gather, fronting the church and the museum, which is the old municipio. It was adaptively reused and now it's being used as the museum. So with that, we were able to connect and with other cities, and they gave us the idea that we can participate with different heritage preservation conservation activities being sponsored by the Department of Tourism and the Association of Tourism Officers. So these are the samples of the guidebooks that we did for built heritage and intangible heritage, highlighting, of course, our preservation measures together with, of course, the intangible heritage. So it's a year-round activity. So you see that the street is used as a performance space because at that time, one of the things that we lack is actually the community theater. But it did not dampen the spirit to celebrate community spirit. So every month there are some sort of activities. You know how talented and how religious the people are. Angeles City or Pampanga in general is known for its religious activity. So the crucifixion is also one of those that is being highlighted as part of the intangible heritage, plus the food that is being promoted, being a culinary destination at that, and where sisig is actually has emanated. We are also very rich in history, which is part of the significance that we get to highlight. In fact, the celebration of the first Philippine independence was done in Angeles City, the first and the only. And this is documented by the National Historical Commission of the Philippines. More activities for year-round activities that highlight the celebration of our identity as a community. So this is one of the best selling factors that we have in Angeles City, our Lubenas, which is uh, religious activity, and now it's also being part of our socio-cultural activity. So there's already a competition being done after we found out that this is one of a tatak ang milenyo activity, no, through the cultural mapping. And we did not stop there. We wanted that this be preserved across the time after you know having cultivated the said rich culture of the city. So we wanted it to be passed on with the next generation, and so therefore the next step was that of the sustainability measures through local ordinances. So this is the birth now of the local heritage conservation measures through the ordinance, and every now and then this is being amended, and there are also some guidelines that we get to follow on how will we implement them. So the ordinance came first, and then the implementing rules and regulations, plus of course the the benefits which people will have to get when they could apply for the zero assessment level for the purpose of real property taxation, for as long as it's a declared historical or probably cultural edifice around the city. No? And then we also had best effort to document our existing heritage houses. We partnered with National Museum and the National Historical Commission of the Philippines, looking into their different significance from historical to aesthetic to architectural to whatsoever. So we had also formed a council, art council, historical council, cultural council, and we acknowledge the fact that we will be able to preserve by both carrying out as well the intangible heritage. So that's the birth of the ordinances for the intangible heritage. Number one, we honor our keepers of heritage, the old ones who are still training young children to make parol and other local crafts. We also have an ordinance that preserves the traditional sisling sisig, and of course the traditional parol, which is uh, being followed by a rite. We also have an ordinance that established Kapampangan as an official language, noting that more and more Kapampangans are no longer using the language that is being transferred by by parents. No, we were so alarmed that the younger generations could no longer speak, and so that's the birth of the said intangible I'm sorry, heritage ordinance that is relative to language. And of course, um, our time to share with the rest of the community. Whenever we get the opportunity to share, just like now, we grab it and we share what have we done, no? And there are some lectures that we prepared and we have presented in different uh, uh, aspects or fora or lectures where the city is being invited. Some of the talks that we have where we presented would include the removal of street wires in historic center, the case of Angeles City, our urban renewal and social, economic, and environmental sustainability of the city. How have we uh, did an effort to elevate the city as a UNESCO creative city for gastronomy? And then how do we promote Malasakit as part of promoting Philippine culture and values? How how have we done the mapping for the city? These are just some of the many. Tourism and cultural heritage protection, and how have we transcended from a sin city to a heritage city, and of course those that are relative to intangible heritage. So in many opportunities, talks as early as 2014, in fact, we get to be invited and share our practice with the community because we feel that we really need to preserve, no? And conserve what is left that will be handed down, supposed to be for the next generation. So these are just some of the conferences. Even in the international scene, um, because my mayor at the time was also very active in promoting heritage. He would use his invitation to further promote heritage. Like there was a time um, in a conference where he did it in the Livable and Sustainable Cities invitation, where he spoke in Singapore, and then the APEC Forum, where he spoke in Cebu City, high-level meetings of the United Nations General Assembly, where he spoke in New York, and APEC, and some sort. So I have a video. It's like uh, showing to you, supposed to be the formula. Well, it's a common effort. It's like malasakit for our very own heritage, plus of course the political will by our leaders. So if we have time, maybe I could showcase it a little later. Our experience gave our experience was actually noticed by different organizations, and so therefore we were able to receive awards. We were not doing it just because we wanted the awards. This came later, no? But it's a testament of how the community have worked, and it resulted to something that is worth sharing for. So probably this is the main reason why the awards are very evident. So for 3 years, the city was awarded by the Department of Tourism with that of their Pearl Awards on the best practices in terms of community-based responsible tourism. And then we were able to elevate our houses to ICPs, important cultural property, given by National Museum. The city also became a regional art center, and then we were cited as a partner in promoting conservation local culture by NCCA. We got the Hall of Fame Award for Pearl Awards for Heritage Conservation, and we were chosen to represent the Philippines for the UNESCO Creative City. And with that, I think the best award so far that we got was the Philippine Heritage Award. The city was a pioneer recipient, and this was awarded in Malacanang. And the latest award was the Tourism Champion Award. So we feel that the mandate is that the government of Angeles City uh, uh, believes that we will not provide only for the physical health, education, livelihood of the citizens, but also for their souls. So this is what captures the leadership uh, of Angeles City, why they made such a move. No? And in a nutshell, as I get to tell everyone, the formula is that there's really a malasakit from the community. So I think the foundation there is that um, it is evident in three aspects. Number one is that we believe that each one has a gift, and there is something that one can contribute, and that everyone, because there's malasakit, cares about something, and that passion is his or his motivation to act. And so therefore the results are tremendous, and we always look into the context of making looking for the power of change with that of what the community can deliver. So we say there is no power for change greater than the community discovering what it cares about. So it begins, it is rooted with why we wanted it. It's the value and the significance to each citizen. With the collected effort, we were able to pull it through. Magandang hapon po sa inyo, umaga sa inyong lahat. Maya paabak ya kayo.
Maraming salamat, Richard. Thank, thank you to all our speakers for their enlightening presentation. We will now open the floor to questions and comments from our audience. Zoom attendees may use the chat or the Q&A function to send their questions. For our audience on Facebook, you may post your questions in the comments section, and the technical team will collate and forward them to our speakers. In fact, there have been plenty of questions already that have been forwarded. I'd like to start with one which was sent by Ambassador Virgilio Reyes because it is very pertinent to Angeles City. He says that these overhead cables really degrade a place. These electric wires really make a place ugly. So I'd like to direct the question to Richard because this is where Angeles really pioneered the way. How were you able to bury the cable lines in Angeles City?
Sir, it was not actually very easy. In fact, negotiation came in for 2 or 3 years, if I am not mistaken. Because as it was noted, it's not very cheap to do it. But with the best effort done uh, by the mayor at the time, where he did some research, he even went to Singapore to look into the best practices where these wires uh, could be actually covered. So research is actually one of the best things that made us successful. Plus, of course, a thorough conversation. What will benefit the community? Because you see, it's so difficult to get in touch with the telecommunication companies. In fact, if you will just be seeing the uh, video, my mayor spoke about the process, no? How it went about. But because of political will, this was uh, it has not become so impossible for it to do it. No? And again, we would like to provide a beautiful what's this look into the aesthetics of the heritage district. That's why at one point everybody agreed, no? So in the video you will be seeing that most of the wires are no longer functioning. So it's like about 80%. So the more they don't get to be lessened, and yet it gets to add every now and then, no? So after having studied it, and so at one point they remove it. Although of course there were some protocols that were considered, and they informed the community, and then the community was given a time to have some sort of a dialogue if this will have to affect the business or whatsoever. But it came to a certain extent that everybody agreed, and the rest is history. It's the
Well,
result.
I remember you actually pointed out it actually improved the business climate, right?
Yes, sir.
In what could you please explain?
Uh, we organized some sort of little fora. How will it most likely will have to benefit, no? And the city is just really very small, sir. So magkakakilala yung mga tao dito, sir. And I think with a common goal and a vision that we need to rebrand the city by having or embracing, no, its rich heritage, and to still preserve what is still left to us. So they understood it, and I guess uh, they also have such move, no, for their CSR. We appealed to them, and I think communication matters so much. You know, it's how you're going to present it, how possible problems that the issue may probably arise be settled through a good communication scheme, no, that will be have to be embraced by the rest.
And I remember you pointed out business actually flourished once the cable lines were buried because people began
Yes,
to flock back,
yes,
yeah, to the
yes. More
center.
and more more and more businesses came in. In fact, a good research came out, which is a third party research by one of the universities. In fact, it's the impact, economic impact, socio-cultural impact, and all those impacts were documented. So since the heritage district would include also museum, they even noted that more and more people, even at nighttime, would ask for the opening of a longer period in the museum, no? So instead of seeing them roaming around the mall, no, they would rather come and visit from sir, you've seen the picture, the initial picture that I presented a while ago, how beautiful it is. Especially during Christmas season, you would be seeing our intangible heritage food, yung local kakanin, and then you will just have to sit down there, which is near the museum, staring the beautiful facade of the church, and you see people walking along Heritage District. So, in fact, people would just love to visit the place just to have what's this? A photo opportunity. At least that they were there, they visited the place. Nearby cities and people from other provinces and other towns would come to visit and experience both tangible and intangible heritage.
Thank you. I just want to comment on that because Ambassador Reyes was asking why is it that cable lines cannot be buried in Intramuros, Quiapo, and Manila? Well, actually, there was an ordinance promulgated under Mayor Villegas sometime in the 60s mandating the burial of cable lines in the city of Manila, but it was never implemented. Now, in the case of Intramuros, I know from speaking with friends in Intramuros administration that in fact there was a plan to bury cable lines in Intramuros. There were talks with a utility company, and the price was set. But when they came back to the table, all of a sudden the price went up. So the talks have been suspended indefinitely. Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah. Now, there's another question. How can you reconcile poverty with heritage regeneration? Would you like to answer that, Caroline? How can you reconcile poverty and heritage regeneration?
I think that's not an easy answer. In order to, I guess, regenerate and revitalize an area, you really need the partnerships that I had brought up. You need the public investment, you need the private investment, and you need, most importantly, political will, right? You need government to be a part of that, and help these areas and determine what can help that community. Is it schools? Is it job creation? Yeah, it's easier said than done, right? I mean, you can create, I guess, certain trades or skills through schools and education. But if there aren't job creation, it's going to be very difficult to kind of help solve the problem with poverty. I mean, I don't think it's as simplistic as that. I think you really need different sectors of a place, of a space, to tackle that, right? It's poverty, but why are they there? Why is there food insecurity? Why is there, transitional settlements? All of this is you really need to look at this in a more holistic approach. I think heritage conservation is one of them. That example in Nizamuddin is a great example of how that could work, right? And I think it's a model that cities and towns should look at. But yeah, I don't think that's an easy, that's not easy to answer. Really, it involves, probably warrants another whole discussion, and maybe something that we could talk about in our series, right?
Would you like to add to that?
May I add
okay,
a little?
please,
May
Ross,
I add a little to
please.
that? This is
Rosley.
Rosley. Okay, I mean, Richard very clearly showed how a city could be revitalized, and Richard didn't talk about the effects of that economically, but you can see that it probably trickled down to a lot of the, economically through the vendors, the food vendors, and the makers of the parole. So by the same token, in Quiapo, there are many opportunities. For example, all of those houses need restoration. So we could train people how to restore historic wood, and give them the skills that could be helpful to them, not just in Quiapo, but then they will have the skills to do restoration anywhere, right? And that's just one. Then we have all the intangible skills, intangible cultural skills. We already mentioned the food vendors. We have the healers whom we can really support. After all, these healers, they are a heritage from our pre-Hispanic past, you know, that's from our old past. And a lot of those healing techniques might really be effective as an alternative medicine, and which we could encourage. And therefore, again, you know, building on our cultural heritage, we can hopefully provide some support for you know, for livelihood for people who are there. And then those are just small things, but there are other sectors like environmental cleanup, sustainable practices that people could be trained on. And of course, as Caroline said, it has to be a multi-pronged approach, a partnership with the government and nonprofits. For example, some of the vacant houses could be used as adaptive use for a health clinic, which is very much needed in the area. So, I mean, one of the objectives of our project with Ateneo, Bakás Pilipinas and Ateneo, as Dr. Joel Canuday mentioned earlier, is really to do a survey first. And out of the ethnographic and demographic survey, we are hoping to be able to identify the issues within the community. What are the needs? And then we can also see how conservation can serve those needs, such as I mentioned, you know, the health clinic in an old building of adaptive use of an old building. That is a perfect marriage of providing social services and conservation. You know, you're putting a building that is deteriorating and which can be restored, and at the same time have adaptive use, and at the same time train the people how to restore the building. So I think it's like a really very fertile kind of you know, approach to urban regeneration. And as Caroline had shown, other cities have done it successfully. One of the most successful ones we have seen is what she showed, the Nizamuddin area in Delhi, which was a multi-pronged approach by the Aga Khan Foundation and a number of government departments in the government of India. So we're hoping that this project would lead to the same. Thank you. I'm sorry, it was a long answer.
No, thank you. I think Dr. Joel Canuday has a hand raised.
Let me just jump in quickly. The question on poverty is an age-old question. In fact, it's the most difficult question that development workers, planners, and policymakers have been grappling. Meaning, it is an issue. It is a problem that, what was already said, that require a multi-pronged approach. It cannot be approached from one development paradigm, and we have seen multiple development approaches just failing in absolving poverty and alleviating lives. But there are also successes in addressing poverty situation. Some countries had managed to lift millions of people out of poverty, but that means that it requires several approaches. And what we are seeing and what we are hoping and arguing is that cultural heritage approaches from preservation to conservation to sustainability can be one of the critical plank, the critical pillars in solving poverty, because poverty cannot be solved in one stroke alone. An economic program cannot immediately address poverty, although it's a critical and crucial plank in addressing it. But there had been several successes in the mobilization of heritage, in lifting communities out of poverty. In 2000, in the year 2000, UNESCO had published this packet uh, um, documenting and then also arguing the various successful experience in addressing poverty in some parts in some countries in the world, countries from Colombia all the way to some other Latin American and South American countries, mainly through one, heritage conservation, two, working with people to preserve their heritage and also sustain their heritage and make livelihood out of both their material and also living cultural heritage. So the more approaches that we can think of is the better that we can be in the position to fight the scourge of poverty.
Thank you, Joel. Richard, you have your hand raised.
Yes, sir. Um, I think immersion with the situation is really very important. When we actually realize that yes, there's something, there are already some changes being taken place, so at that time in the city after all those heritage conservation, problems arise one after the other. In fact, they're even related to economic impacts. For instance, uh, uh, quite a number of tourists are now coming in, bus loads of children and schools coming from Manila to the city, no? Just to visit the place. Now there were a lot of things that are now associated with that, and I think that gave us to think about critical things that are associated uh, with our conservation efforts. For instance, uh, where will we put all those buses? Where will we park them? Where in fact the heritage district is just compacted. You see, how many students could only get inside the museum if you would like that the museum will be kept safely, well managed, and there are like about 10 buses of students all the way from Manila. You see, and time after time, we have to plan. Sometimes they would tell us, "Oh, it's Holy Week. There are pilgrims coming all the way from south, and there are like about 10 buses coming in. We don't have parking. We don't. You see, but you know right away that it will create economic impact. Of course, they will have to eat in Angeles City. They will have to pay for the museum fees, but it gives other problems that are so associated with heritage conservation that needs to be managed very well. Otherwise, our heritage district will never become so sustainable. So problems, you will encounter the problems, and you will have to find ways on how to solve the said problems. We never denied that the economic impact contributed so much. It has contributed so much, but we also face quite a number of problems as well. No, the thing here is we are also intact with our policies, our ordinances, and yet you will realize that even the policies sometimes need to be amended the soonest possible because you see of the changes that are being taken place. And then you also have to realize that it's somehow still that the atmosphere of community spirit and rural spirit is being manipulated with that of the results of the visits, no? More and more people are coming in. Siyempre yung mga taga-probinsya hindi naman sanay doon sa mga ganyan, sir, di ba? So you also get to address them. Bakit kailangan? Bakit ang daming tao? Bakit traffic na traffic? Lahat po problemahin mo, sir. You will have to encounter all those. And I tell you, even in the planning, you won't get to think about them unless otherwise you will have to experience them. And so we have to plan. the planning is that if the first few batch will have to come and see the church, then the other batch is simultaneously doing it with the museum. The other batch is in the library. After 30 minutes, there's a round robin. Then there will be an exchange of another audience, another batch to, you see, we never run out of issues, things to discuss in terms of management. We're just talking of management, not the sustainability yet.
Oh, Richard, it's nice to have problems like yours.
Yeah, well, they say they're good problems, but you see,
Yeah.
sometimes it gives you a lot of headaches.
Okay. There's another question here. Given that given the fact that there are high-rise condominiums emerging in Quiapo, how can you conserve Quiapo as a heritage site? Caroline, would you like to address that question?
I mean, you can have a heritage site and you can still construct new buildings, right? Quiapo has a very low scale, low rise, character. And, this is where kind of zoning comes into play. I mean, here in New York City, we have, we allow for, I guess, taller buildings, at the corners or avenues, and then mid-block, we have what you saw earlier, the row houses. We have low scale, and that's one way to manage it. It's you can have historic districts, you can have new buildings, but as I showed earlier, it needs to be sensitive to the existing character in terms of size and scale and massing. And that shouldn't deter a place from being a heritage site. In fact, we still include kind of buildings that are maybe like high rises that are being constructed in Quiapo. We still include that because then that will still allow us to regulate those buildings as well. And who knows, maybe they get torn down at some point and we will be able to manage and have some input on design. In terms of the high rises that you talk about and this development, it's something to look at. We're not saying that you can't construct something new, but it's more about being sensitive to the character of the area and to the neighborhood. One of the issues we have here in New York is shadows and the loss of light and air. That's not something that in the preservation field and even by law, we don't regulate that, but it certainly affects everyone around. That's more commented in like the planning department, Department of City Planning. But that would work hand in hand. Zoning is also a tool to help, preserve, the character of an area and a neighborhood. But that said, it's good to speak with owners, developers, stakeholders, people that could be potentially affected, because in the end, you construct that building, you're going to have to deal with the people that are living there, that are working there, that are affected by it. And you want to be a good, a good neighbor. And that's what we try to do here.
Thank you. Thank you, Caroline. There's another question here. How can a community become more knowledgeable and more interested in learning about heritage? I think that, Richard, you have experience in that. How can a community become more knowledgeable?
Well, it has to. I think it has to start with making them realize the importance of heritage. What makes it significant to them? If there is no value in it, why would you care for it?
So how do you do that?
Well, we actually here in Angeles City, we started with educating the teachers first, because the elementary teachers would usually pass by the church and the founder's house, and yet they don't even know the significance. So what we did was we allowed them to experience the place in itself. We discussed and we made some modules uh, regarding the importance of the place. No? What makes it not just an architectural site, rather what makes it really relevant to each person. So for quite some time they were telling that I've been walking here for the last 30 years. It's my first time to get inside the church. For instance, to have them experience the tolling of the bell, we went as far as that one, no? Especially for the social sciences teachers. They get to be excited, no? When they go back, they get to share it with their kids through their stories, personal narratives. And I think that's what we also were gathered for. Why do we have to do it? Anyway, life will have to go on. But realizing that it's really very important, you have to start with the significance and the values attached to it. I was supposed to also share an answer with that of the previous question, Dr. Zialcita.
I'm sorry, please, please.
Yes. I remember my mayor was really very, he thinks ahead. What about when there will be quite a number of business industries will have to apply for, that are so near the heritage district? And he made actually a study about the High Line inside the story of New York's Park in the Sky. He even went there and got a book um, that would answer actually those prevalent high-rise buildings. And now, I think because of planning which was shared by Miss Caroline, I think it's even one of the attractions. He gave me this book, very beautiful. No? The title is Highline, the Inside Story of New York City's Park in the Sky. So it contributes uh, to not just keeping the heritage alive, no, but also to further uh, improve aesthetics as well as yung because it's also sir it's also uh, putting a lot of trees, a lot of how do you call this, uh, living trees that would help people visit the place. He would tell me that there are a lot of people who get to walk there, no? Even if it's a busy city, they would just like to experience and to have a breath of fresh air and just sit down, um, which I think is one of the most valuable components. Thank you.
Thank you too. Now, we have a question or a comment rather from Father Earl Valdez of the Philosophy Department and Assistant Parish Priest of the Minor Basilica of the Black Nazarene. He would like to speak and comment and address concerns. Father, you have the floor.
Yes, good morning, Dr. Zialcita, and to our speakers and to all those who are attending. No, just some comments. No, as somebody who is for months already is immersed in the life of the community, but also as someone who is from Ermita, born in Manila and raised here in Ermita. Quiapo is an everyday thing for us. No, one important concern here is how do we in a way, Quiapo is not so much defined by culture, no, but it's more of livelihood and the everyday dwelling. No? So it's more functional than anything else. And what I see here as a difficult hurdle, considering heritage preservation, is that it's not and there is no easy solution to preserving heritage, because for most of us here, at least on this site, no, perhaps not unlike or not like something like ermita, no, in which there is a business and a cultural distinction. No, most of us are not familiar with heritage, and most of the people dwelling here see heritage as something as an abstract concept. No, the more immediate concerns here is dwelling. No? For example, there are informal communities around what we call the pagoda, no, just in front of uh, Quiapo. No? Also, those who are dwelling in the different communities here in our ano. So it's not something that's it's not something that's very immediate to them. And perhaps the more that we insist on preserving cultural heritage at the cost and at the expense of their dwelling, of their business, is would be something that's antithetical, something that will be met with opposition. Unlike the construction of condominiums here in business centers, especially by Muslim and Christian investors alike, we don't see them, we don't hear them much often, and we have to defend them on a major platform in the name of heritage. But that's not a concern, because the promise of these constructions would be more business, would be more people going here. So I think even the idea of the preservation of heritage must come from the people who dwell here. And I think most of us know, most of us who have been here see Quiapo as a very, very complex area, where culture, livelihood, business intermingle, and even us here, religion is also intermingled. So yeah, that way of defining heritage preservation. Baka kasi we're preserving something that's not valuable even to the dwelling community there. At least in the case of Angeles, it has to be transformed, but there are clear delineations, so to speak. Pero here in the so-called armpits of Manila, it's more complicated than that, I believe. So thank you very much.
Sige, thank you, Father. Would either of you like to answer that question or address that comment? Caroline or Richard?
Yes, sir. So I
Okay,
told you
Richard.
a while ago, it's not really very easy. In fact, for quite some time, the branding of the city as a scene city and entertainment city was really at the back of the mind of the people. And yet, I think what we were pushing through is that if there is really a will, and if the community really embraces, just like what Father, see the importance of the place or its significance, just take things at a time, run the program, and make things happen. Hindi yung the problem with the Filipino culture, I think, is we often change our officials, and even officials sometimes have different priorities, or sometimes even heritage is not even a priority at all for them. So it's really a big issue, but you see the heart of it would really come from how people would see it as something that will contribute to their pagkatao, pagiging tao, and their existence.
Well, Dr. Daenos, that's what Dr. Canudai and Dr. Zialcita was saying, right? Is the ethnographer and understanding the people living there, who work there, who live there, and that's invaluable. That's something that I think is needed when you're considering heritage, whether it's tangible or intangible, and it's what this project is all about.
Thank you. Thank you, Caroline.
I'd like to just
Yes, Fred.
reinforce that, as Caroline said, that's the purpose of the project. We are not starting with assumptions. We are going to start, with a very open mind. That's why we are starting with an ethnographic study, because we really want to see what does the community consider as important to them, heritage-wise. You know, there are certain things that are a given, you know, because we know that some of the buildings are architecturally significant, but there may be other places, other areas in Quiapo that we don't know about that are important to the community. And that's why we are starting out with an ethnographic survey, and also to identify what are the issues that are of concern to the community, and how can we reconcile that with the existing environment, and what opportunities do this existing heritage culture have to offer to lift the people, to improve the well-being of the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ross. Dr. Kanuda has something to say.
Yes, just very quickly. In our study in anthropology, we don't really see heritage and development as anathema to each other. In fact, they can go hand in hand. The question of conservation and the question of preservation does not necessarily mean, and should not actually mean, taking away community from the process, taking away the question of economic and as well as political self-determination initiatives. It has to be and must always be part of discussions on heritage. Heritage is the sum total of our culture. It's something that we do every day, and something that we acquire, we initiate, and we had enjoyed as a result of the historical and social processes that undergo in our lives. And the way that we define culture is the thing that we do every day. Economic activities is a cultural activity. In fact, economic activity rests on cultural relations. Vending in one area and vending in another area are actually totally different things, because there are underlying sociocultural structures that allow for economic activities to actually thrive. And in fact, understanding the cultural dimensions of social life in a community such as the Quiapo district is important to see and to imagine how else we can improve lives in that context. The question about heritage is not so much the question wherein we would be establishing like monuments that are detached from communities, from people. In fact, the word heritage probably has always been associated with museums, has always been associated with monuments, but it doesn't have to be, because heritage, as I've said, is the sum total of everyday life. It is what we do. And as already pointed by our colleagues here, how we would wish to work on in understanding a district like Quiapo in the way that we would also wish to understand different other districts, is to start from the community, start from the people, start from the stakeholder. And we do believe that any plans that relates to development or heritage should not come from above. Just to add one particular point, because I can see one question here from Virgilio Reyes about anticipating disaster and other events. Currently, the United Nations Education Culture Organization had initiated or had passed a communique approved by different countries worldwide to consider heritage as an approach in responding to emergency. They called it it's an addition to a covenant, a global agreement on on safeguarding intangible cultural heritage and the relationships between intangible and material heritage in approaching in responding to emergencies, rehabilitation, and recovery is at the heart of this covenant. And it's quite recent. It was approved in 2019 and being rolled out, but the pandemic struck. But in these times during the pandemic, there had been some planning on how to integrate heritage, understanding heritage, mobilization in responding uh, to the pandemic and also in responding to disasters that might come our way. So heritage is a social cultural context. It's the way that we do things. We live our lives. It's not something alien to the community, but it's something that I think everyone should be able to grasp, to see how it can be mobilized and how it can be used as a force to address social problems, from poverty to conflict to tensions to underdevelopment.
Salamat po. Actually, we have 5 minutes left. Can I just add something to what Dr. Canuday said? Siguro makatulong then kung paminsan-minsan gamitin natin ang wikang Tagalog kasi ibang conservation, dating ng conservation sa Tagalog, pangangalaga. Lahat tayo nais natin pangalagaan ang ating bahay, di ba? Nais din natin pangalagaan ang ating mga magandang kaugalian. So talk about heritage is actually magandang kaugalian na natin gustong alagaan. Basically, that's what we're trying to do. There are plenty of good customs that we really have to conserve today in this era of climate change. Like, for example, traditional architecture is very climate friendly because the ventilation of traditional houses in Quiapo is done passively. The large windows, high ceilings, there's a lot of airflow, and this kind of architecture is really what we should try to conserve. Because right now air conditioning units have become problematic as the world heads towards increasing heating. Also, we have to protect the esteros, for example, and the waterways. This is part of traditional life in Quiapo. But the waterways have been degraded. They'll be very important not only for cooling the city, but in case of an earthquake, because it's through the waterways that a lot of transportation may have to pass through. So just to show you that heritage, ang pangalaga po ng magandang kaugalian ay mahalaga pa rin. Okay, two more questions, please, before we sign off. Okay. There's another question here. What are the potentials and challenges facing stakeholders and communities in sustaining urban heritage in Manila for local development? What are challenges and potentials facing stakeholders in developing and harnessing urban heritage in Manila for local development? It still goes back to that question. Paano magagamit ang magandang kaugalian para sa kaunlaran? Anybody would like to answer? Caroline or Richard, would you like to answer that? How can you harness urban heritage for local development?
Sir, I think it's more of looking into which is more important, no? Kasi sir, very often sasabihin naman nila, ano ba yung pamana na yan? Ano ba yung heritage na yan? Kapag nagugutom yung tao. So, in the same manner, what would be the hierarchy of priority in terms of what should be important and what should not be important? So people would always look into basic, and I think if for us even the soul is part of the said basic, as important as it is, then we value it. although it may not be pragmatic, it may not be practical, but I think it's really looking into issues kung paano talaga mariresolve yung mga social issues, lalo na sir yung poverty.
Well, it seems in Angeles it has helped reduce poverty. I know for a fact in
Yes.
Vigan, where I was involved in 1990s, the level of poverty in Vigan was 47% when we started the work of conserving the historic district. Then it went down to 7% or even 5% according to the Asian Institute of Management. Yeah. So,
That's my take.
yeah.
Even
Caroline?
government officials would still use that as a philosophy.
Yeah.
Would I dwell on projects relative to heritage, or rather look into much more important social issues that arise? For instance, insurgency, or probably education, or probably poverty. Social issues. So, kaya kung minsan iba rin ang thinking and philosophy ng mga nakaupo, sir. Listening to, of course, the cry and the plea of the people. Ano yung mas mahalaga at the moment to sustain their lives?
As a parting word, Caroline, would you like to add something to that?
Yeah, there are definitely challenges, right? There's everyone in the community, stakeholders, everyone values something in a neighborhood, in an area. You know, this is what heritage is about, right? It's what you consider important, and maybe someone coming in from the outside doesn't see it that way. They don't value a certain building the way you do. They don't have that attachment and the memories associated with a place, a space, in an area that you grew up in. And they may not think it's important. And I think it's challenging to argue for why a building, a site, a place is important, and why we want to preserve these physical vestiges for the present generation, for the future generation, because these places, these sites, they're irreplaceable. You will never get it back again, right? And this is how we can learn about our history, everyone's history. I mean, it's local, right? For me, it's New York City. For you, it's Quiapo. For you, it's Angeles City. But these places matter. You know, they tell stories of people that mattered. That's why we're here today, right? I think that it's invaluable to the world, to the planet. You know, we're all in this together. You know, heritage preservation, conservation, this all ties in with those sustainable development goals. This all ties in with being climate friendly, reusing a building, repurposing a building, adding additions to historic buildings. That's all possible. Development can still coexist while still preserving and retaining heritage houses. But it's important for all the stakeholders to come together and get to a resolution. It's challenging. There's no other place than where I am that it's like developers, preservationists, you know, people from the outside. Everyone has a stake in the community. But I think that you know, there's hope everywhere. We have examples from here, Angeles City. You know, again, it's getting everyone together, that bringing that understanding, and coexisting as you always have, while retaining and preserving what people think are significant, while still managing to have change.
Okay. Thank you. With that, we end the first of a series of webinars organized by Buhay Quiapo. You can catch the live stream on the Facebook pages, this has been your moderator, Fernando Zialcita of the Department of Sociology and Anthropology of the Ateneo de Manila University. Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you.